welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome back to a fall romance recommendation video. Fall is officially here and I'm very excited to be sharing with you all of my fall recommendations for the romance category. I do have some fantasy books in here, but I would categorize them as a fantasy romance, so I definitely feel like they fall in this bracket of what I wanted to recommend today. I'm hoping this comes at the right time and that I have some recommendations on here that will fit your needs. I tried to vary the type of books that I picked for all ranges of books that you like to read, and hopefully you will find at least one book on this list that piques your interest and makes you want to pick up one of these books during this fall season. So I'm going to start with the books that I don't own, just because I don't want to forget them, and then we'll get into all the physical books. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is Scream for Us by Molly Doyle. This is a masked men Halloween novella. It is very spicy. It is very, very unhinged, and I feel like for this one you really have to check the trigger warnings if you want to read this one, but it is a fantastic fall smutty romance book. I don't want to really say the synopsis of this one because it is so short. I don't want to give anything away. It's definitely something you should go into blind, and obviously check the trigger warnings, but go into relatively blind about the synopsis, and I think that you will have a good time. You kind of have to really suspend your disbelief and go in for a fun, fresh time, but I do think that you will really enjoy this one. It's one that I think about quite often. There's also a Christmas novella that goes along with the series, as well as a full-length novel if you are interested in moving on with this author's work, but definitely one that I recommend for the fall season. Up next, we're moving into a fantasy romance. It's more of like a cozy fantasy romance, and that is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This is one that I read last year, or maybe earlier this year, I'm not really sure. Time is a construct that I do not understand anymore, but it is one that I relatively enjoyed. This one follows Mercy, who is the person that is taking care of this undertaking, basically where bodies get taken to get passed off into a more respectable place for their bodies to go as their souls go into the afterlife. And Hart is a kind of like a police guy. He goes in and takes care of drudges, which are bodies that have been re-inhabited by wayward souls that are coming back to wreak havoc on this small town that they live in. And they have a very hate to love relationship. Hart and Mercy have never gotten along, but they start writing letters to someone named Friend, and it ends up being each other. And it is a pen pal secret identity romance, and it's really sweet, but also the fantasy aspect is really compelling and very fun to read about. So definitely one that I recommend if you're looking for a cozy, sweet fantasy romance. I believe this one was pitched as You Got Mail meets The House in the Cerulean Sea. So if you're interested in that, definitely check this one out. Up next, we have The Whispering Dark by Kelly Andrew. This is one that I was so shocked by. It was one of the first YA fantasies that I gave 5 stars to this year, and I just really enjoyed this one. This one follows a girl named Delaney. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's very rare that I remember characters' names, so if that's right, I'm giving myself a pat on the back. But she is really wanting to go to this school for magic, where basically you are taught how to rip open seams of the world and step into alternate realities and different planes of our own world. And she ends up running into a boy that she knows from her childhood in a very creepy instance, and he is told to absolutely stay away from her, have no contact with her, but they have an undeniable chemistry and connection that they cannot deny, while also trying to figure out the mysteries that surround this school and Delaney and the mailman character's past. This one does have deaf representation, and it's absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed the rep in this book, as well as just the story as a whole. I thought it was really well done, and if you're looking for a dark academia fantasy romance that is YA, this is definitely one that I think could be a good option for you. Moving into more dark romance, let's talk about Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This is a Peter Pan retelling where Hook ends up with Wendy. It is a contemporary style. There's no magic to it. It is a dark mafia romance. I didn't absolutely fall in love with the story, but I think that this idea and this concept that Emily McIntyre has taken on has so much potential, and all of the books in this series are inspired by different stories. And I really think that this is a great starting place if you are looking to just dip your toe into dark romance, and this is the first time that you have read anything like that. It is very easy to read. It's not as dark as some of the other books that I might maybe have on this list. So I think that if you're looking for a retelling that is something that you're a little bit more familiar with and it's a little bit darker, this is definitely a good one to pick up, as well as from what I've heard, the rest of the series is also really fantastic. Now let's talk about a thick book. This book is a commitment, but it is also so good, and that is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I love this book so much. It is a fantastic, slow burn, absolutely incredible romance. I cannot remember the main character's name, but this follows a woman who is going back to this small town where she grew up, and the last place that she saw her mom alive. Her mom disappeared on a hiking trail one day and never came back. She's had a very difficult time in the last couple of years, and so she goes back to kind of find some solace and reconnect with her mother in the only way that she knows how. And when she gets there, she is trying to rent like a garage Airbnb situation, only to find out that it is actually not for rent. The son that lives in that house put it up for rent to get extra money for a guitar, and the guy who lives there, the dad who owns the property, his name is Rhodes, and he knows that, I think her name is Aurora. Oh my god, don't quote me on these names, but he knows that she has nowhere to go, so he lets her stay, and it is a forced proximity, single dad, slow burn romance. Mariana does slow burn like nobody else does, and if you are looking for a good, chunky fall book that you can dig your teeth into and have that really immaculately written slow burn vibes, this is definitely going to be the one for you. I love Mariana Zapata. I have read many books by her at this point, and I definitely think this is one of my faves. We are going to move into something much darker, and that is It Ain't Me Babe by Tilly Cole. This is definitely a dark read, so check the trigger warnings, but this is a motorcycle club romance dealing with a cult. It's also very dark. It has a lot of on-page sexual assault, so please check the trigger warnings if you're interested in this one. But this one follows, I want to say his name, but I can't remember it, and I know that it's pretty unique, but I cannot remember what his name is. Styx. River Styx. He, as a very young child, ends up meeting the heroine of the story in the woods behind a wall where she's at her cult, and he is a select mute, and he also has a stutter, and he doesn't talk very much, but he remembers this girl very clearly. Years pass, and she escapes the cult after being abused and tortured for many years, and she ends up near dead on the door of the River Styx, which is the motorcycle club. He takes her in and heals her up and keeps her there for safety, and they end up having a relationship. This one is definitely not a favorite book of mine. I think that I had some issues with the language and some of the things that were said in the story, but I do think it's a very heartfelt and emotional read that is definitely worthwhile. It's just some of the things kind of rubbed me the wrong way. That being said, I do want to continue with the series, and if you are looking for a dark motorcycle club romance, feel free to give it a go, but please check the trigger warnings. I've only heard that it gets darker from the first book on, so be aware of that, be kind to yourself, but if you are looking for a dark motorcycle club romance, this is definitely one you should pick up. Next up, let's talk about a White Shoe series, and that is the Bonds That Tie series by J. Bree. This one is a White Shoes paranormal romance that follows a girl who has run away from her bonds. She has, I believe, 4 or 5 bonds that she refuses to meet up with because she does not want to put them in danger. She knows something about this world that is very dangerous and pivotal to her survival as well as her bond's survival, but they don't know that. They think that she has rejected the bond and has run away, and so she is kidnapped and placed with her bond forcefully and is forced to, interact with them, and during that time she does end up creating relationships with them, and it is a White Shoes romance from there. This is a 5 or 6 book series. It's definitely longer. The audiobooks are kind of long, but it's definitely fast paced. It's very interesting. I did really like the emotional aspect of the story, but also the fantasy and world building aspects were, in my opinion, really well done. I have not finished the series. I have gotten 4 books in, but if you are interested in this type of story, it has lots of different magic and different things to explore in this world. I think that you will really like this one. Let's move into something a little bit more cozy, and let's talk about Pumpkin Everything. This is a cozy Hallmark style romance about a girl who is moving back to her small town because her grandpa has driven his car into a Dunkin' Donuts. He is very old and should not be driving anymore, and she goes to take care of him as well as their small little store called Pumpkin Everything, where they sell pumpkin everything. And she ends up in a relationship with her ex-best friend who lives in this small town, who she had a relationship with in the past. So it's a second chance romance, but also ex-best friend romance. It is very sweet. It's very much a sweet, cozy Hallmark movie that you can sit down with a cup of hot chocolate or tea or chai and just really enjoy the story. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so much fun, and I believe it's also been turned into a movie. So if you're able to watch that on Hallmark, it might be a good thing to read and watch at the same time. Definitely perfect perfect for fall. The last one that I do not own is a recommendation that I didn't necessarily absolutely love, but I feel like this could be a hit for a lot of people, and in fact I have read the reviews and I know that it was a hit for many people, and that is In Peace Lies Havoc by Amo Jones. This one is set at a very dark and interesting and entertaining circus, where this girl is taken to become a part of the circus, and she ends up in a relationship with one of the men there. It's definitely a very interesting and confusing read, but if you like a dark circus atmosphere, I think that you will really enjoy this one. Be prepared to be a little confused as you read it, but it does make sense in the end. It just wasn't something that I absolutely fell in love with. Alright, let's talk about books I do own. Let's get Tate James out of the way, because you know I have to recommend her for a dark romance read. We have the Hades series and the Guild series by Tate James. These are both White Shoes polyamorous romances that I have a huge love and adoration for. This one is a White Shoes with 3 men and 1 female, and this is a White Shoes with 2 men and 1 female. This one follows assassins that work in a mercenary guild, and this one follows the head of a very large mafia organization. So if you like anything like that and you're looking for a good dark White Shoes, check the trigger warnings, but I definitely recommend some Tate James. Up next, I want to talk about a duet, and that is There Are No Saints and There Is No Devil by Sophie Lurk. This is a serial killer romance. Yeah, you heard what I said. If you haven't heard of this one, if you haven't heard of Sophie Lurk, you definitely should pick up books by the queen, Miss Sophie Lurk. But this one is following a girl named Moira who gets kidnapped and attempted to be moited by a man and left on the doorstep of another serial killer. So it is following 2 rival serial killers who are going against each other to find the best and most memorable kill. During that time, Moira kind of gets sucked in the middle and she ends up falling for Cole. Yes, he's a serial killer, but apparently he is a lovable serial killer. So if you're looking for a dark, full of red flags book series, I definitely recommend this duet. It is fun, it is fast-paced, it is definitely something that I had a great time reading, but you definitely have to just let the red flags fly past, because oh boy, it's full of them. Then we have a small town romantic suspense, and that is Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. This one follows Winslow, and she is coming back to the town where her grandfather lives to become the chief of police in this town. Granted, nobody really wants her to be the chief of police. She's a woman. She has taken the job from a man that has been doing it for quite some time, but she really wants this position, and she knows that she can do the job. She ends up falling for grumpy Broody Knox. He is a barber as well as a bar owner, and they have a very uncomfortable situation in the beginning that leads to a I wouldn't say hate to love, I guess hate to love romance. Grumpy Sunshine, badass female character, great time. It also has a suspense aspect because there are women that are committing suicide in their town, but the numbers are very high for a small town such as this, and Winslow is hellbent on figuring out what's going on. So if you're looking for a good romantic suspense with really good spice and plot, this is definitely one that I would recommend. I feel like I'm constantly talking about the series, but I had to recommend Flock by Kate Stewart. This one is about a girl named Cecilia who goes back to her town where her father lives to work in the factory that her father owns. She has to do that for a certain amount of time so that she can get her inheritance, which she wants to use to take care of her mother. When she gets there, she ends up meeting a man named Sean in the factory that she works at, and he in turn introduces her to Dominic, and it is a shareable romance between these 3 characters. The plot evolves quite a bit from there, but that is the gist of the first book in the series. It is a very emotional and dark and absolutely gut-wrenching series, so be prepared for some tears and some absolute outrage. But I would also say the first book is a little bit confusing, so you kind of have to stick through it and get to the end, but I promise it is so worth it. If you are looking for a good emotional read, this is definitely one that you need to pick up this fall. I have to talk about it. You know I have to talk about it, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Everybody and their mother is talking about this, and I am definitely one of those people. I love this book so much. This one follows Violet Sorrengail, who, when she graduates, she wants to become a scribe in the scribe quarter, but on the day of her graduation, her mother forces her to go into the Dragon Riders Guild. Her entire family are Dragon Riders, and her mother wants Violet to do the same. However, Violet has a chronic illness, which makes her very susceptible to breaks and sprains in her body. She's constantly in pain, and she is definitely not the best candidate for a Dragon Riders Guild. That being said, she has no choice, so she pulls up her big girl panties, for a lack of better words, and jumps into this head first. And it is a fantasy romance between her and one of the most hated men in this Dragon Riders Guild. And it is so freaking good. I know that everybody loves this. I know there's a lot of criticism out there. I won't hear it though, so don't tell me. If you have not read it already, please pick it up. The next book comes out very, very soon in November, and it's definitely a great one for fall. There's nothing better than a good stalker romance during the fall time, so let's talk about two of them hand in hand. We have Haunting Adeline and That Sick Love by Jessie Hall. These are both very similar and very different at the same time, but they are stalker romances at the forefront with very red flag, morally gray characters that you just love to hate and hate to love. I love Aiden Meadows and Arrow so much. I feel like these are the epitome of everything that I want to read about but definitely don't want in my real life. And if you are looking for a dark stalker romance that's going to pull you in and make you absolutely fall in love with these characters, these two are definitely ones you need to pick up. I also want to talk about Daughter of No Worlds by Krista Broadbent. I will say that the romance in this book is not at the forefront, but the series as a whole is a fantasy romance, so I feel like I can still recommend it in this video. And this one follows Tasana, and she is basically a slave. She's been working for years to buy her own freedom, and the day that she does that, something very intense happens and she ends up on the run. She goes to this political faction that has order magic in order to learn from them so that she can go and free everyone else from the town that she escaped from and give them the same freedom that she now has. But when she gets there, there are no other spots available for somebody to teach her, so she ends up with a retired teacher that doesn't want anything to do with training her, but he ends up giving in and trains her in the magic that she so desperately wants to learn in order for her to fulfill her goals. And it is a romance between her teacher slash guide and Tasana. It is a very interesting fantasy romance, and I definitely really enjoyed the world building and the magic in this book, and I'm curious to see how book 2 goes, but I feel like if you're interested in this story and you need the extra push to pick it up, this is definitely one that's great for fall. I feel like dark romances are always a great bet for fall, so I have to talk about the Lords series. The first 2 books that I have read are The Ritual and Sabotage. These ones follow a dark secret society set on a college campus, and it's a lot of like degradation, BDSM, kink-filled romance. So if you're not into that, I definitely wouldn't recommend these ones, but I do think they are a fun time. They are, well, at least The Ritual is very, very chunky, and all the rest of the full-length novels in this series are very chunky, but the Sabotage is it's a novella, so you know, if you're looking for something shorter, there you go. But this is definitely fun and fast-paced, but it's also very dark. Check your trigger warnings. There is some on-page SA in these books, so be aware of that before jumping into this. But I do think that it was very fun, and I definitely liked the vibes of this. It definitely gives dark fall, Halloween, October spooky vibes. So if that's what you're looking for, this is a great one to pick up. Second to last book I want to talk about is Heartless, Heathens by Santana Knox. This one is a kind of dystopian white shoes romance set at a school where a girl is locked up in a tower and is left there basically on her own when these 3 boys move in looking to take over this school, and she is somehow drawn into their world and becomes a white shoes romance between the 3 of them. This is a very, very, very slight retelling of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, so if you're interested in a dark, I wouldn't say satanic, but cult-y type white shoes romance, I think this is definitely a good one. I had a great time. It's fast-paced, it's sexy, it's fun, but it's also very interesting when you think about this world that they're living in and this twisted way that our lives could change if things went in this direction. So really thought this was interesting, and it's definitely a good dark fall read. And the last one that I want to talk about is The Dare by Holly LaRoe. This one is actually set at a Halloween party. This is a novella that comes before the full-length novels The Losers, so Losers Part 1 and Part 2. This one follows Jessica, and she is known when she was in high school to be a mean girl, a bully, and she goes to a party and ends up in a game of Truth or Drink, beer pong edition, with the boy that she used to bully quite often. At the end of the night, she ends up losing, and she has to become his slave for the night, and it is a BDSM, degradation, kink short novella. It is very spicy, very, very, very spicy, and definitely filled with triggers and kinks, so check those before you jump into this one, but I do think that it is perfect for fall. It is set at a Halloween party, so obviously fall, and it is just so fun, and it leads into the full-length novels really, really well. So if you're interested in reading something short before getting on to a 500+ page book, this is definitely one to pick up ASAP. Alright, that is all of my fall romance recommendations. Feel free to let me know down below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. Also, feel free to let me know what is your quintessential fall romance read. I have to know. I need more recommendations for books to pick up this fall. And also, if you made it to the end of this video, leave a leaf emoji down in the comments if you don't know what else to comment. But that is the end of this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Baby, turn it down like it's sweet and ready. Go slow, keep it nice